After 7 years of building their empire, they fired me with a single text message while I was recovering from surgery. But what they didn't know was that their biggest competitor was lying in the hospital bed right next to mine, listening to every cruel word. If you are watching this, kindly subscribe and let me know where you are watching from, and I hope that you're safe wherever you are. The morphine made everything fuzzy around the edges, but the words on my phone screen cut through the haze like broken glass. Sarah, your employment is terminated effective immediately. Your desk has been cleared. Security will escort you out when you return. I blinked twice, certain the medication was making me hallucinate. But no, the message was real, glowing against the sterile white walls of St. Catherine's Hospital. My boss, Marcus Kellerman, had just destroyed my life with 3 sentences while I was lying helpless in a recovery bed. My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm 34 years old. Until that moment, I was Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships at Kellerman Industries, a Philadelphia-based logistics company. For 7 years, I had poured my soul into that place. Missed birthdays, canceled vacations, worked through holidays. I had personally secured contracts worth over $60 million annually. And Marcus had thrown it all away because I couldn't answer his call during my emergency appendectomy. The pain in my abdomen was nothing compared to the fire spreading through my chest. How could he do this now? When I was at my most vulnerable, my hands shook as I read the message again, searching for some hint of humanity, some acknowledgement of everything I'd sacrificed for his company. There was none. I was about to set the phone aside when I heard a low chuckle from the bed next to mine. The man there had been admitted an hour earlier, pale but alert, an IV running into his left arm. He turned his head toward me, his eyes sharp despite his obvious fatigue. Bad news. His voice was gravelly, but there was genuine concern beneath it. I looked at him properly for the first time. Mid-40s, silver threading through dark hair, wearing a hospital gown that somehow still made him look important. I had noticed his admission papers earlier, when the nurse left them at the foot of his bed. David Morrison, the name had read, triggering something in my memory that the drugs had clouded. I just got fired, I whispered, my throat raw from the surgery, from a hospital bed. His eyebrows rose. That takes a special kind of cruelty. Without thinking, I tilted my phone so he could see the message. His eyes scanned the words once, twice. Then his expression shifted to something between sympathy and recognition. Kellerman Industries, he said slowly. I thought this day couldn't get any more interesting. That's when it hit me. David Morrison, CEO of Morrison Logistics, the company that had been our fiercest competitor for the past decade. The man Marcus had called our greatest threat, the rival who had been systematically targeting our client base for years. And here he was, lying 3 feet away from me, watching my boss's betrayal unfold in real time. I stared at him, my heart racing with something that wasn't pain or medication. It was possibility. Looks like your boss doesn't value loyalty, David said, his voice measured. But I suspect your clients might feel differently about you personally. His words sent electricity through my veins. He was right. In 7 years I had built relationships that went far beyond corporate contracts. These weren't just business deals. They were partnerships built on trust, late-night crisis calls, and genuine care for their success. Marcus thought he could just erase me from those relationships, but he had never understood the difference between a signature on paper and true loyalty. I pressed my lips together, replaying his message. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. He had chosen his timing deliberately, wanting to catch me when I was weak, vulnerable, unable to fight back. But instead of breaking me, something inside hardened like steel. But what Marcus didn't realize was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his career, and it was lying in the hospital bed right next to mine. The next morning, the antiseptic smell mixed with burnt coffee from the nurse's station filled my nostrils. My body ached from surgery, but my mind had never been clearer. I lay there staring at the ceiling tiles, Marcus's words playing on repeat like a broken record. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. 7 years. 7 years of building his company from a regional player into a national powerhouse. I had canceled my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner to close the Henderson account. I had missed my nephew's first steps because I was in Seattle saving the Morrison deal. Wait, not Morrison, the Meridian deal. Different company entirely. But this Morrison, lying 3 feet away, represented something Marcus had always feared most. David was awake, propped against his pillows with a tablet on his lap, looking more like a CEO in a boardroom than a patient recovering from surgery. His fingers moved across the screen with purpose. "You didn't sleep much," he said without looking up. "Hard to, when your entire career just implodes overnight," I admitted. He glanced at me, his expression analytical. "Not imploded, redirected." He set the tablet aside. "Tell me something, Sarah. How many major clients did you personally manage at Kellerman?" The question caught me off guard. This was insider information. Marcus would have killed me for sharing. But Marcus had already killed my career, hadn't he? What loyalty did I owe him now? 12 directly, about 25 in total if you count the regional accounts. And the annual revenue from your portfolio. I hesitated. Then the anger surged again. Roughly 58 million. David's eyebrow arched slightly. And they trusted you personally. I thought of midnight calls from panicked CFOs, of the quiet thanks after I'd solved crises that could have cost them millions. Trust wasn't even adequate. Many of them had built their entire expansion strategies around my recommendations. "They trusted me," I said firmly. David leaned back, studying me with the intensity of someone calculating complex equations. "Sarah, I'm going to be direct. Morrison Logistics has been trying to break into Kellerman's market share for years. What we lacked wasn't strategy or capital. It was someone like you, someone who understands not just the numbers, but the human element." My breath caught. This felt surreal, like some fever dream brought on by painkillers. "Are you offering me a job, here, in a hospital?" He smiled slightly. "Opportunities rarely wait for perfect timing. You know that better than anyone. Have you ever had a moment where your entire future suddenly crystallized in front of you? This was mine. I could see it, the chance to take everything I'd built and use it against the man who had discarded me like garbage. But fear crept in. Marcus will come after me. Non-compete clauses, lawsuits. He'll make my life hell." David nodded. "He'll threaten, certainly. But tell me, where is Morrison Logistics headquartered?" "New York." "And Kellerman, Philadelphia." He spread his hands. "Different states, different jurisdictions, and courts rarely enforce non-competes when someone is terminated without cause. You're freer than you realize, Sarah." For the first time since receiving that text, hope flickered in my chest. I imagined Marcus's face when he discovered that his attempt to humiliate me had delivered me straight to his biggest rival. I pictured his nephew Trevor, his hand-picked successor, fumbling through client calls he couldn't comprehend. David picked up his tablet again. "Think carefully. I don't want an answer born from anger, but I do want you to see this moment for what it is. Leverage. Your former boss thought he was ending your career. He may have just launched it into orbit." The nurse entered then, interrupting the intensity with routine IV checks. But David's words echoed long after she left. That afternoon, I called my husband James. His voice was tight with worry. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" "I'll survive." "But James, you're not going to believe who's in the bed next to me." When I told him, he was silent for a beat. Then he let out a low whistle. "If that's not the universe giving you a sign, I don't know what is." I smiled for the first time in days. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was just Marcus's arrogance finally catching up with him. That night, as the hospital settled into uneasy quiet, I drafted a list on the back of my discharge papers. Names, phone numbers, companies, people who had trusted me, depended on me, clients who wouldn't tolerate being shuffled off to Trevor or some inexperienced replacement. By the time I finished writing, I realized something profound and undeniable. Marcus hadn't just fired me, he had set me free, and soon he would deeply regret it. But first I needed to make a decision that would change everything, and I had less than 24 hours before discharge to make it. I was discharged on Thursday morning. The nurse helped me into my coat, each movement reminding me that my body wasn't ready for battle, but my mind had never been sharper. David had been released the day before. As they wheeled him out, he had leaned over and whispered, "My office will call you. Rest for now, but don't waste time. Windows of opportunity have expiration dates." That sentence played on repeat as James drove me home through Philadelphia's morning traffic. Outside, the February air was sharp and unforgiving, but it felt like awakening from a long sleep. At home, I found a small envelope slipped under our apartment door. Inside was a handwritten note in neat script. "Sarah, I meant every word. Call when you're ready." Below it was a business card embossed with Morrison Logistics logo. I sat at our kitchen table, the card between my fingers. Part of me hesitated. Joining a direct competitor would burn bridges forever. Marcus would brand me as disloyal, a traitor. Industry rumors would spread like wildfire. But then I thought of his text message, the calculated cruelty of its timing. He had already torched the bridge while I was lying helpless in a hospital bed. What loyalty did I owe someone who had shown me none? That evening, after James went to bed, I dialed the number. A woman's calm voice answered. Morrison Logistics, this is Patricia. I cleared my throat. This is Sarah Chen. David Morrison told me to call. There was a pause. Then her tone shifted to something warmer, more urgent. Of course, Miss Chen, Mr. Morrison has been expecting your call. Can you come in tomorrow afternoon? Tomorrow, less than 24 hours after being discharged. My body still felt fragile, but my pride wouldn't allow me to show weakness. Yes, I said. I'll be there. Friday afternoon, I walked into Morrison Logistics' Manhattan office. The lobby gleamed with polished granite and floor-to-ceiling windows, everything radiating confidence and success. Patricia met me at reception, her smile professional, but genuine. Mr. Morrison is waiting in conference room A. David stood when I entered, extending his hand like we were meeting at an industry gala, rather than after sharing trauma in matching hospital gowns. Sarah, he said warmly. I'm glad you came. I settled into the chair across from him, my pulse racing with possibility and terror. I don't want to waste your time, I said. So let's be clear. I'm not here to gossip about Kellerman Industries. I'm here because I know my clients intimately. They trust me. And if Marcus thinks he can just transfer them to his nephew like assets on a balance sheet, he's about to learn a very expensive lesson. David studied me for a long moment, then nodded approvingly. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were contract drafts, compensation figures, equity options. It was more generous than anything Marcus had ever offered. But what made my heart race wasn't the salary, it was the title, Vice President, Strategic Partnerships and Client Relations. My throat tightened. This is more than I expected. You've been undervalued for too long, David said simply. I don't intend to repeat that mistake. I signed that afternoon. My hand trembled slightly as I wrote my name, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of what it meant. The following week, I began my campaign, carefully, quietly. I reached out to 3 clients I trusted most. I didn't try to sell them anything. I simply told them the truth, that Marcus had terminated my employment, that I was now with Morrison Logistics, that I would continue to be available for their needs. To my amazement, none of them hesitated. If you're at Morrison, we need to be at Morrison. Jennifer Walsh from Atlantic Manufacturing said bluntly. Marcus's nephew called us yesterday. We ended the call after 5 minutes. He didn't even know our quarterly projections. Another client, Robert Kim from Coastal Distribution, was equally direct. We wrote your name specifically into our contract renewal for a reason. Where you go, we follow. By the end of the week, 2 companies had formally requested proposal meetings with Morrison Logistics. Nothing signed yet, but the momentum was building like an avalanche. Marcus must have sensed something shifting. On Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen since the hospital. Against my better judgment, I answered. Sarah. His voice was clipped, almost frantic. I hear you've been making calls. Is that true? I let the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. This Reddit revenge story was about to get very real. Marcus, you fired me. You called me unreliable. What exactly did you think I would do? Disappear? You're jeopardizing everything we built together, he snapped, his voice rising. No, Marcus, I said, my tone steady as steel. You jeopardized it when you fired the person your clients trusted most. I'm just giving them choices. His breathing became sharp, almost panicked. This is a mistake, Sarah. You'll regret this decision. I ended the call without responding. For the first time in years, his threats felt hollow, powerless. That night, as I sat at our kitchen table with the Morrison contract folder open beside me, I realized something profound. Marcus thought he had cut me loose, but he had actually handed me leverage he could never reclaim. The first cracks in his empire were already showing, and once major clients started moving, there would be no stopping the complete collapse. But Marcus wasn't going to go down without a fight, and his next move would be more vicious than I ever imagined. By the time I settled into my corner office at Morrison Logistics, I had a company laptop, a Manhattan view, and a legal folder thick enough to stop a bullet. Morrison's general counsel, Elena Rodriguez, had spent our first morning establishing ground rules. "You bring nothing proprietary from Kellerman," she said, her tone professional, but protective. "No documents, no internal strategies, no confidential information. You work from memory and public knowledge only. If a client contacts you, we document everything. If you're tempted to reach out first, you call me instead." I nodded. Understood completely. She gave me a reassuring smile. Perfect. Because Marcus will absolutely claim corporate espionage. But the facts are simple. You were terminated without cause. Your relationships are human capital, not company property. That distinction will protect us. It felt like wearing armor for the first time in years. We developed a strategy around my highest value relationships, clients who had specifically written my name into their service agreements. Elena drafted a simple public announcement for me to share. After 7 years at Kellerman Industries, I'm excited to join Morrison Logistics as Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, looking forward to continued excellence in client service. No accusations, no bitterness, just a professional status update. When I posted it on LinkedIn, the response was immediate and telling. The first call came from Angela Stevens at Northeast Manufacturing. "Sarah, I just saw your announcement. We were told you were taking extended medical leave and wouldn't be managing our account anymore. Is that accurate?" "I'm no longer with Kellerman," I said carefully. "I've joined Morrison Logistics." Angela didn't hesitate. "Then we're invoking our key personnel clause. Our board approved it specifically when we renewed last year. Can Morrison send us a proposal? We'll transition this quarter, if you can guarantee service continuity." My hands shook as I took notes. Not from fear, but from how quickly the tide was turning. Within hours, Coastal Distribution's CEO reached out via email. His message was brief and direct. "We require senior-level oversight and proven reliability. If Sarah Chen is no longer with Kellerman Industries, please advise how she can continue managing our logistics partnership through Morrison. Do you know what it feels like when years of hard work suddenly validate themselves?" This was that moment, multiplied by every late night and missed weekend I'd sacrificed for these relationships. By end of business, 4 more clients had requested transition meetings. Nobody was angry or dramatic, just pragmatic questions about continuity, reliability, and trust. Exactly the conversations I'd built my career facilitating. Marcus, predictably, didn't handle pragmatic well. My phone exploded with missed calls from his number, followed by increasingly frantic text messages. "Cease contact immediately. You are violating your non-solicit agreement. Our legal team will be in touch within 24 hours. His attorney followed with a blistering email, full of threats about lawsuits and career destruction. Elena's response was surgical in its precision. "Our client was terminated without cause and has made no unauthorized solicitations. All contact has been initiated by existing business relationships, following a lawful career announcement. Please direct future communications to counsel." No emotion, just facts. That evening, James asked quietly, "Does he still intimidate you?" I considered the question seriously. He used to terrify me. Now I just feel finished with him. The next morning brought the first formal contract termination. Northeast Manufacturing's legal team cited their key personnel clause and copied Morrison on the correspondence. It wasn't emotional or vindictive. It read like weather data, pure facts without feelings. Marcus finally cornered me on a direct call, his voice brittle with barely controlled panic. "What are you doing, Sarah? You can't steal our entire client base. This is corporate theft. You terminated my employment, Marcus. Clients are making independent business decisions. You think you can run to Morrison and destroy everything we built. I'll bury you in litigation. Then discuss that with Elena." I said evenly. "You won't survive in this industry," he snapped. "People remember disloyalty and betrayal. Then they'll remember yours too." I replied and hung up before he could respond. My hands trembled afterward, but not from fear. His power over me had completely evaporated, like morning fog in sunlight. The next day, Coastal Distribution formally requested their transition discussion. Their VP, Maria Santos, was characteristically blunt. We were transferred to 2 junior associates last week, who couldn't answer basic questions about our shipping schedules. If you're leading at Morrison, we'll follow. If not, we're pausing all new projects until we find someone who actually understands our business. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Linda Park Kellerman's senior operations manager. Her voice was low, urgent, conspiratorial. I shouldn't be doing this, but you need to know what's happening here. Marcus instructed IT to forward your client emails to Trevor. He's had us reissue contracts with your name removed, and his nephews added. He's also approving unauthorized change orders to inflate quarterly revenue numbers. My stomach dropped. Linda, that's potentially fraudulent. I know, I've been documenting everything. I'm not protecting him anymore. Not after what he did to you in that hospital. I warned her to be careful, but inside something crystallized. This wasn't just incompetence anymore. It was desperation, and desperate people make catastrophic mistakes. But I was about to discover that Marcus's desperation would drive him to actions that crossed every line of professional decency. By the end of my second week at Morrison, the exodus had become an avalanche. Northeast Manufacturing signed their transition agreement. Coastal Distribution's board approved our proposal. Atlantic Manufacturing scheduled their final Kellerman meeting for the following Friday. Each conversation felt identical, polite, professional, but absolutely decisive. These weren't betrayals or hostile takeovers. They were business corrections. Clients were simply following the trust they had invested in me over years of proven results. Marcus was unraveling in real time. Linda called again, her voice carrying exhaustion and fear. It's getting worse here, Sarah. Much worse. Marcus is barely holding himself together. The board demanded explanations about the sudden revenue drop. The auditors discovered emails where he backdated Trevor's employment records and approved expenses that don't exist. It's catastrophic. I closed my eyes, absorbing her words. Part of me had expected Marcus to find a way to land on his feet somehow. But from Linda's description, he was cornered and everyone knew it. He's also been telling people you stole proprietary information, she continued. He's claiming you copied client databases and strategic plans. Some people believe him. What do you believe, Linda? I believe he fired someone in a hospital bed and is now facing the consequences. I believe he's desperate enough to lie about anything. That Friday, the news reached us officially. Edward Collins. Wait, that's the wrong name. Marcus Kellerman had been placed on administrative leave pending a board investigation. The official statement cited concerns about leadership decisions and client relationship management. Trevor had resigned that same day, leaving behind a trail of panicked emails and confused clients that nobody bothered to address. That evening, James poured wine in our kitchen, but his expression was thoughtful rather than celebratory. You don't look happy, he observed. I swirled the wine slowly, watching reflections in the glass. I'm not sure happiness is the right word. Relief maybe. You won, sweetheart. He fired you at your most vulnerable moment, and now look where you are. I nodded, but the truth was gnawing at me. Destroying someone else's life never truly feels like victory. It feels like cleaning up a mess that should never have been created. The following Monday, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Sarah. Marcus's voice was unrecognizable, hoarse, stripped of all authority. They've destroyed me. You've destroyed me. I didn't respond immediately. You could have just walked away, he continued, his tone wavering between anger and despair. But you had to humiliate me. After everything I gave you opportunity-wise, you had to ruin me. I finally spoke, my voice quiet but unwavering. You didn't give me anything, Marcus. I earned it, and you tried to take it away with a text message while I was lying helpless in a hospital bed. That wasn't leadership. That was cruelty. The line went silent, except for his unsteady breathing. Then he whispered, almost to himself, maybe you're right, and disconnected. I stared at the phone for a long time. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. But the real question remained, what happens when your revenge succeeds beyond your wildest expectations? In the months following Marcus's removal, Morrison Logistics grew faster than anyone anticipated. The influx of premium clients triggered an expansion that opened new offices in Boston and Washington, D.C. David kept every promise he'd made in that hospital room. giving me autonomy, respect, and the authority to lead without constant micromanagement. For the first time in my career, I wasn't fighting to be heard. I was simply doing exceptional work, and the results spoke louder than any boardroom politics ever could. But the industry is small, and news travels fast. 3 months after Marcus's termination, I learned the full scope of his downfall. Linda, who had landed a position at a competitor, filled me in during a coffee meeting in Center City, Philadelphia. "He's been blacklisted from every major logistics firm on the East Coast," she said, stirring her latte thoughtfully. Word spread quickly about the falsified records and unauthorized billing. Nobody wants to risk hiring him. I didn't respond immediately, processing the information. "His wife filed for divorce last month," Linda continued. "Apparently, she discovered he'd been hiding the severity of the company's financial problems. The house is in foreclosure." I set my cup down carefully. This had gone far beyond professional consequences. This was a complete life implosion. "Do you feel guilty?" Linda asked, studying my face. I considered her question seriously. "I feel complicated about it. I never wanted to destroy his entire existence. I just wanted clients to have choices. Sarah, you need to understand something. Marcus's problems didn't start when you left. You leaving just exposed what was already broken. The financial irregularities, the client mismanagement, the nepotism, that was all happening while you were there, covering for his mistakes." Her words hit me like a revelation. I had been so focused on my own experience that I hadn't considered the broader pattern of dysfunction. "You didn't ruin Marcus," Linda said firmly. "You just stopped enabling him." That perspective shift changed everything for me. This wasn't a revenge story anymore. It was a story about consequences, accountability, and the difference between loyalty and complicity. But the final chapter was still unwritten, and it would determine whether this true story ended with justice or just destruction. 6 months after my termination text, I received one last communication from Marcus. Not a call this time, but a handwritten letter delivered to Morrison's office. Elena brought it to me personally, having already reviewed it for legal concerns. "It's unusual," she said, placing the envelope on my desk. "Personal, but not threatening." I opened it that evening at home, James reading over my shoulder. "Sarah," it began in Marcus's familiar handwriting. "I know I have no right to contact you, but I need to say this. You were right, about everything. I was scared, paranoid, and I treated you horribly because I was terrified of losing control. Firing you was the worst decision I've ever made, both professionally and morally. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I destroyed. I hope you find the success you always deserved, Marcus." James whistled softly. "That's not what I expected." Neither had I. I had prepared for years of legal battles, industry blacklisting, and professional warfare. I hadn't prepared for accountability and genuine remorse. I never responded to his letter, not out of cruelty, but because I realized our story was already complete. Marcus had learned his lesson, and I had learned mine. Today, 2 years later, I'm managing director of Morrison Logistics East Coast operations. We've grown by 340% since I joined, primarily through organic client transitions and referrals. Not a single acquisition was hostile or unethical, just businesses choosing better service and proven reliability. Marcus eventually found work at a small regional firm in North Carolina. Linda tells me he's doing well, managing a smaller portfolio with appropriate oversight. His family drama became family healing, apparently. People can change when consequences finally reach them. But here's what I learned from this entire experience, and it's something I want every person watching this to understand. Loyalty is only valuable when it flows both ways. When it becomes one-sided, it transforms from strength into exploitation. I gave Marcus 7 years of unwavering dedication, even when he showed me none in return. I covered for his mistakes, managed his failures, and sacrificed my personal life for his success. And the moment I became inconvenient, he discarded me without hesitation. The lesson isn't about revenge, it's about recognizing your own worth. Jobs disappear, companies fail, titles change. What remains constant is your skill, your integrity, and the genuine relationships you build with people who respect your value. Have you ever found yourself giving more loyalty than you receive? Marcus lost everything because he never learned that leadership means protecting the people who protect you. I gained everything because I finally stopped protecting someone who wouldn't protect me. When I think back to that hospital bed, to the text message that felt like the end of my world, I realize now it wasn't an ending at all. It was the beginning of the career I actually deserved. And the most beautiful part, none of it required revenge, manipulation, or cruelty. It just required me to stop accepting less than I was worth. This Reddit revenge story taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply success, integrity, and the quiet satisfaction of proving that you were never the problem. If this true story resonated with you, if you've ever felt undervalued or betrayed by someone you trusted, remember this: your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you respond when they show you who they really are. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a similar family drama or workplace betrayal? How did you handle it? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else going through the same situation. If this story inspired you to recognize your own worth and demand better treatment, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about turning life's worst moments into your greatest opportunities. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well.